Good morning. We wanted to say
thank you to all of our subscribers.
And our new subscribers, especially. I think there's some 30 new subscribers out there that we picked up over the weekend after Trailer Palooza. So it's great to have you aboard. We wanted to tell you a little bit about what we do here. We try to bring you new content all the time. Some weeks there's nothing new out that we can either review or react to. So we will release like a throwback or a retro review, something usually that's a cult classic, right?
Mm-hmm. But if you don't like it, don't bail on us because we always have new content for you.
Right. So this week, this one was Lainie's choice. She wanted to bring this one back. It's something that we released when the channel first started. And the channel kind of originated on the heels of the release of The Last Jedi. The kids are huge Star Wars fans. We're very excited to go to The Last Jedi. And like it, dislike it, we're not trying to sway you one way or the other. The reality was you came out of The Last Jedi and you were a little bit bummed. How come?
Because of what happened to Luke. And the story to me was confusing. I didn't really understand it. But most of all, it didn't feel like Star Wars.
Okay.
It wasn't Star Wars.
To you?
To me.
I agree. And frankly, I agree with you, but and a lot of people don't. It's been a very polarizing topic, and we're cool with whichever way you feel about it. We're not going to try to sway you that it should be one way or another. But for you were a little bit bummed about it. So she was so disappointed with what happened with Luke that I thought, well, let's have some fun with it. So we did a story treatment for episode 9. And that story treatment, in it, we tried to take on the task of how could we make this work so that episode 7 and episode 8 exist the way they are, and can we make old fans of the series who are not happy with the new episodes and new fans of the series who like those episodes, can we make everybody happy? Can we somehow tie this all together and make everybody happy and give an ending that everybody would be excited about? So this was our effort at that. So I wrote it for you. And we had some fun with it. Now, at the time when we released it, there were some comments about the Ben Kenobi aspect of it. And what I would do with that is it would be a couple minor flashbacks. I really and you won't understand what I'm talking about right now until you see the episode. But there's enough in Revenge of the Sith, especially when Obi-Wan asks Padme whose child she's carrying, or he suggests whose child it is, and her hesitant reaction to that, her hesitant answer to that, that coupled with Anakin's reaction when Obi-Wan steps off the spaceship on Mustafar after Padme and Anakin are arguing, those two things are ambiguous enough that with one or two small flashback pieces, I think that could work. I think if you just watch this for just the enjoyment factor of it, if you enjoy it, it is fan fiction. It was just fun for us to kind of talk about, and it's a bedtime story for that matter. It is what it was. So we hope you enjoy it, and if you don't, please don't, unsubscribe from the channel. We bring you a lot of different content, and this was just something for fun that we tried. Right?
Right.
Okay. So we're not forcing you to watch it. Okay. Chewy.
A little.
So today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to talk about what episode 9 would or could do to perhaps bring the Star Wars fans back into the fold and make episode 8 feel a little better to us. Now, of course, to do this, and I worked on kind of a story treatment. Lainie has not heard it, so we're going to get a real live reaction from her as I go through it here. And I'll kind of talk to you and to her at the same time a little bit about it. So we'll tell the story as best we can. And Star Wars really does work that way. It's kind of a storytelling. It harkens back to old school storytelling. And that was part of what George Lucas was trying to do with the original. And remember that Episode 7, Force Awakens, and Episode 8, The Last Jedi, are not how I would necessarily have written them. Of course, it's to each his own, everybody's different. But I have to deal with what was done in them, so we have to address that. We also have to address Star Wars Rebels, Star Wars Clone Wars, and all the other things that Disney has made canon now, and I have to try to tie all that together. And I'm hoping that perhaps I've done that here. And of course, it's fan fiction, and if in the comments, if people say that, I'm not insulted by that, because it's fine. It goes back to storytelling, so if it is what it is. We have to also deal, unfortunately, with the untimely passing of Carrie Fisher. Princess Leia, the actress who played Princess Leia, unfortunately passed away. And we have to deal with that, and that's going to be part of how episode 9 has to unfold and deal with that, and because they didn't deal with it in episode 8. So my thought is that Snoke, remember Snoke, perhaps Snoke could have manipulated time and events through his powerful use of the Force. So that means that aspects of The Last Jedi were a projected image created by Snoke, and he did that in order to bring Luke Skywalker out of hiding and to expose Kylo Ren's treachery. So this Force projection allowed Kylo Ren and the First Order to believe that Ren had in fact killed Snoke. Meanwhile, other events unfolded as a byproduct of this projection. So Snoke is still alive, and he's on his planet, and he's hidden armies there that the First Order is unaware of. Maybe he even has kind of cool armies, like he has shock troopers. Since we have stormtroopers with the First Order, maybe he has shock troopers or a Crimson Guard or something kind of cool like that on his planet. Meanwhile, we're going to return to the last moment where to the moment in Last Jedi where Leia was blown into space. This is, she was blown out into space by the TIE fighters that were behind Kylo Ren. And this is before she uses the Force bubble to kind of fly back into the ship. So she's still there, her eyes are closed, and she hasn't used the Force to save herself yet. And a powerful entity approaches her and reveals his identity. He's actually the true other that Yoda referred to in The Empire Strikes Back. Remember when Yoda said to Luke, he said to Obi-Wan says, "That boy is our last hope," and Yoda says, "No, there's another." And Luke is led to believe that that's Leia, but actually this person is the true other. So we see a flashback of Padme giving birth to the twins back in Revenge of the Sith. We get a flashback of that scene. She's giving birth to the twins, and this mysterious person that has approached Leia recounts the tale of his birth. We see Luke is born, and then Leia's born. Then we see Yoda, and he's off to the side, and he's using the Force to hide the birth of a third child from everyone that's present in the room. Remember, Obi-Wan was there, and Bail Organa was there, and Yoda is screening that through the Force, and a third child is born. And Yoda uses the Force to convince everyone that's there that Padme actually passed away after Leia's birth, so nobody knows about this third child. Now the mysterious other tells how Yoda hid him away with foster parents and sent Ahsoka to watch over him. Now this is similar to the story of the Man in the Iron Mask. There's the story of the Three Musketeers, and then later there's the Man in the Iron Mask, where Aramis, one of the Musketeers, hides away the twin king, Philippe. And the scene could be easily edited for that. And there's a precedent for it in the Three Musketeers stories, and that's part of the mythology that George Lucas worked with. So this person that's speaking to Leia while she's in space and she hasn't saved herself yet, this person's Luke and Leia's lost brother. And that turns out to be Ezra Bridger from Star Wars Rebels. And he's utilized the same time portal that was established in the Rebels animated series that allowed him to save Ahsoka from Vader. So he stepped into time and he saved Ahsoka from Vader. He's used that same portal to come to Leia at this moment. He also tells Leia that she and Luke have a niece that they have known for some time, and that's his daughter, and his daughter is Rey. So Ezra's daughter is Rey, okay? And that makes her Luke and Leia's niece. Ezra tells Leia that she's the strongest of the Skywalkers, and that she has the power to bring Luke back. she must become one with the living force. Now, the living force is like when when Darth Vader kills Obi-Wan in the original Star Wars and he disappears and his cloak falls to the floor, or Yoda in Return of the Jedi disappears, and they call, I've heard that referred to as the living force, so I'm going to use that term here. So Ezra tells her that she must become one with the living force and must sacrifice herself to it in order to bring Luke back. So basically, she will trade places with him. So rather than save herself like she did initially in The Last Jedi, she allows herself to become one with the Force, and she disappears into the Force. Cool. So now we see parallel scenes of Snoke forming his armies, while Leia and Ezra's actions actually alter the timeline of Last Jedi. So now Luke is still alive at the ancient Jedi Temple on the planet. And that planet, I haven't heard it actually spoken out loud. I call it Act 2 because I think they were being funny because Force Awakens was Act 1 and this was Act 2, Last Jedi. But anyway, so Luke's still alive at the ancient Jedi Temple. He senses Leia's passing. He senses that Leia has died. And he now uses the Force and calls his lightsaber to his hand. He raises his X-Wing from beneath the waters of Act 2, and flies toward his true destiny. So because she died, that alters all the things that happened after that in the Last Jedi timeline. And Luke, he senses his sister has passed away, and that brings him back to a point where he wants to fight for the light. He wants to do what Leia would have wanted him to do. So he calls out for the lightsaber, he raises his X-Wing, and he flies out into space. All right? So now, with Snoke being alive, and knowing about Kylo Ren's treachery, because remember Kylo Ren, this projected image that Snoke allowed to have happen, Kylo Ren thought he killed him, and now Snoke knows Kylo Ren's true nature, the treachery. So Snoke is going to send out assassins to try to hunt Kylo Ren down. And this would now open the door for a reborn Luke to bring Ben Solo back into the fold to fight against the darkness. So he can bring Ben back to the side of the light. All right, meanwhile, we have Rey, Finn, and Poe, and they're working with an underground group of rebels or the Resistance, whichever term you want to use, and they're trying to subvert Hux and the First Order remnants. So they're working underground doing that while we're doing that. So now what we've done is we've restored all the players that we need to allow the story to unfold, in my eyes, properly for the fans. And I haven't fleshed out what would happen in the middle because that wouldn't be my job. That would be a scriptwriter's job. But we're going to build up to a climax that sees Luke fighting the battle on the physical plane of existence. He's here now. He's alive and he's flesh and blood. And he's fighting with his brother Ezra, his niece Rey, and his nephew Ben Solo. And they're all fighting the physical battle. And while Yoda, Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Leia are battling on what we're going to call the metaphysical plane. They're part of the living force. They're like the force ghosts, right? So they're working there. And they fill roles like mentors and gods in a sense like the Greek gods, okay? So just like Yoda or Obi-Wan would appear and help Luke or guide them, they work that way. But Yoda was able to utilize the Force as a ghost. Remember, he allowed lightning to strike the tree in The Last Jedi? So they can also work that way because they've ascended into the living Force. And this is where we're going to get a major revelation, okay? So when the physical Skywalkers, Luke, Ezra, Rey, Ben, the ones that are in the physical world, try to join in the Force, through the Force, with the ascended Skywalkers, which would be Anakin and Leia, that they're unable to combine their powers to fight against Snoke. And they can't figure out why. Now, Yoda and Obi-Wan are kind of mentors at this point because they're not Skywalkers. And then Yoda's going to come forth with the answer as to why that's not working. And that answer is that Obi-Wan must join with them and not Anakin. Because here we're going to find out that Obi-Wan is actually Luke, Leia, and Ezra's real father, not Anakin. Because Obi-Wan and Padme were actually in love, but because of his commitment to the Jedi Order and his friendship with Anakin, and he knew Anakin cared for Padme, he couldn't pursue the relationship. And the fact that he thought that Luke and Leia were actually Anakin's children, I think could be attributed to Yoda. Yoda hid the fact from him that they were truly his children to protect the children, also to protect Obi-Wan, and to keep him in the Jedi Order, because Obi-Wan was such a pure Jedi and had such commitment that he wouldn't want him to throw that commitment away because of a mistake. So at this moment, we get this big reveal that Obi-Wan is actually Luke and Leia's father and Ezra's. And what this would also do is it would preserve the reveal in The Empire Strikes Back. When Darth Vader says to Luke, "I am your father," right? That was really powerful when I was a kid because the prequels didn't exist. There was episode 4, 5, and 6. You didn't know that Darth Vader was Luke's father. With the prequels, if you watch it starting with episode 1, you know that Anakin becomes Darth Vader, and it's Anakin Skywalker and Luke Skywalker. So that reveal in Empire doesn't have the weight or the power that it once had. But by adding this reveal in, it twists everything around, and that gives new power to the Darth Vader reveal when he says, "I am your father." So it's going to be at this climactic moment that Obi-Wan and Leia join with Luke, Ezra, Rey, and Ben and fight the enemy through their combined strength in the Force. So Obi-Wan and Leia command the Force from beyond, while Luke, Ezra, Rey, and Ben fight the physical battle. We now have the strength of the ascended Kenobis in connection with their living relatives fighting Snoke's forces. Meanwhile, there's a space battle rages between the Resistance and the First Order. The Resistance forces are led by Chewie and Finn, who are in the Falcon, and then Poe's leading his X-Wing squadrons, and they're having a space battle at the same time. And Leia and Obi-Wan would be guiding and coordinating the armies and the fleet through their mastery of the Force. This would be similar to the way like the Emperor used to coordinate the Imperial forces. They would use the Force to help the pilots, communicate and work together. And it's considered that's why the Battle of Endor fell apart for the Empire after Luke and Vader killed the Emperor. That ability to coordinate by using the Force was gone, so the Imperial forces fell apart. So Leia and Obi-Wan would be doing the same thing from beyond, helping coordinate what was going on with both the land battle and the space battle. However, Snoke is wielding the Force in such a way that it looks as though the light side can't win. And this includes the space battle, which is going very badly for the Resistance. And at one point, the Falcon actually disappears into hyperspace, apparently retreating from the battle. Finally, the tide is turned on both fronts. The space battle is salvaged by the last-minute entrance of the Falcon, which is now piloted by Lando and Chewie. Now, let's just a little sidebar here. Ideally, I would have preferred that in The Force Awakens, Maz. I've been informed it's Maz. I call her Maz. It's like Han and Han, right? Maz's part would have been Lando. To me, it makes more sense that Han would have gone to Lando to get BB-8 to the Resistance. Lando would have rebuilt his operation somewhere and would have had the underground connections. So it makes more sense that Lando would have been in that role. But since that's not possible, Lando's entrance here is poetic because he and Han were friends and he belongs with Chewie and the Falcon. So coming in is this fleet led by the Falcon. Lando and Chewie are piloting the Falcon now. With them, part of the fleet is led by Ahsoka. And we could consider Ahsoka's race has a longer lifespan than humans, so it's believable to me that she could be there. There are also squadrons of clones, including Rex. And Rex, it's considered now canon that he was in Return of the Jedi. He was part of the squad on land that Han was leading. So I think Rex could still be around, and maybe he's captaining one of the capital ships that they lead into battle. Ahsoka lands on the planet. Lando leads the space forces. She comes to the aid of the Kenobis, and she's still wielding those two lightsabers. And what happens is, and again, we're building to a climax here, but Snoke is ultimately stopped by Anakin and Yoda's combined mastery of the Force. That's what defeats him. And this would complete Anakin's redemption and show that he's now fully in the light, because he no longer cares that Obi-Wan and Padme betrayed him. Instead, he helps Obi-Wan and his former master's children and grandchildren. And that fully brings him all the way back from where he fell. And at this point, with everything being brought to a close, Qui-Gon would appear as a Force ghost, and he would call Anakin and Yoda away, and they would ascend higher into the Force, and they would disappear. And as Snoke dies, his face reverts to Mace Windu's face, and we hear Ezra mutter, "Darth Plagueis." I know, it's a little over the top, but it ties it all together somehow. So, what do you think?
I think it was 2 yums up.
Well, you have to say that because you're my kid. But
I don't have to. I just think it's really, really good.
well, good. Well, so it was worth telling you the story.
Mm?
So it's an exercise in how could we make it work. And I think that this would allow The Last Jedi to exist as it is, because we can't change it, obviously. But it would possibly make everything kind of come back. And again, it is fan fiction. It's just an effort, but it does show a way where we could tie all the loose ends together, have some revelations that maybe are unexpected, and have some fun. So if you enjoyed it, if you thought it was, even if you didn't enjoy it, if you thought it was bad, obviously you can comment. Please share it. See if we can get it out there. You know, obviously J.J. Abrams isn't going to use it, so it's just fun for us to play with and think about. And it's fun to tell stories. You like to write stories.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of something fun to do.
My teacher tells me to write 5 paragraphs. I write 5 pages.
Exactly. And, well, that's a good thing. So it was kind of fun. Anything else you want to say?
If I had 10 thumbs, I would give it 10 yums up.
Well, I appreciate that. Because you're my offspring. I am your father.
You're funny.